All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes film director and novelist Sandi Tan, who will discuss her new book, Lurkers. Tan will be in conversation with St. Louis author Kea Wilson. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Sandi and Kea, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. Currently, we offer curbside pickup and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. We are very much excited to announce that we are reopening on Independent Bookstore Day, so that is something to put on your calendar. We are incredibly happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for all of your friends at left-bank.com. Purchasing a signed copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep this event series going. So thank you for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the event, so you can type your questions as a comment, and you can do that at any point in time throughout the event. Be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. We have so many incredible events already lined up for the year and are adding events daily. About tonight's book, Lurkers. From author and filmmaker Sandi Tan, director of the acclaimed documentary Shirkers, comes a novel about a neighborhood of immigrants, seekers, lovers, and lurkers. The residents of Santa Claus Lane do their best to stay out of each other's way, but desire, fury, and mischief too often propel these suburban neighbors to collide. Precocious Korean-American sisters Mira and Rosemary find their world rocked by a suicide, and they must fight to keep their home. A charismatic and creepy drama teacher grooms his students. A sardonic gay horror novelist finds that aging is more terrifying than any monster. And a white hippie mom and her adopted Vietnamese daughter realize that their anger binds them rather than pushes them apart. Lurkers is an homage to the rangy beauty of Los Angeles and the surprising power that we have to change the lives of those around us. Kevin Kwan, the best-selling author of Crazy Rich Asians, says, "How is Lurkers simultaneously hilarious and horrifying? I'll tell you how. Pure genius." Sandi Tan populates Santa Claus Lane, her leafy corner of suburban LA, with such viscerally original characters that I found myself laughing at their outrageousness while nodding at their familiar humanity. Every page of this wildly original book is a surprise and a delight. And Kate Elizabeth Russell, the author of My Dark Vanessa, says, "Lurkers is a heartbreaking delight. The intricately woven stories and characters here are funny and horrifying, weird and wise. I tore through this novel. Tan is a visionary with an imagination I could follow anywhere." About tonight's speakers. Sandi Tan was born in Singapore and has an MFA in screenwriting from Columbia University. She directed the 2018 Netflix film Shirkers, which won a directing award at the Sundance Film Festival, was named Best Documentary of 2018 by the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, and was shortlisted for the 2019 Oscar for Best Documentary. The Black Isle was her debut novel. She will be directing her film adaptation of Elif Batuman's novel, The Idiot. She lives in Los Angeles. Tonight, Sandi will be in conversation with Kea Wilson. Kea received her MFA from Washington University in St. Louis, where she lives and works. We Eat Our Own is her first novel. And now, without further ado, I'm so incredibly happy and proud to welcome our guests for the evening. We have Sandi Tan and Kea Wilson. If everyone at home would please help me by giving them a warm round of applause. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you all for coming on. Go ahead, Sandi.
I was just going to say, I look forward to the day when we no longer have to say where we got our MFAs, because it's so embarrassing.
So true. I like to out in St. Louis because it's here, and WashU, was very kind to me. But yeah, I completely agree. We won't mention that you went to Columbia. So how about that?
No, it's fine. I'm just kidding. It just feels like you never grow up, but I guess we have to, prove that we have done something serious before embarking on the writing of books.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I'm going to embark on this conversation, Shane, unless there's anything else before you send us off into this. I'm so eager, excited to talk to Sandi about this fantastic book. So, Sandi, I met you at True False Festival in Columbia a few years ago, and I accosted you a little bit after.
I know, and I thought, what this woman has such enterprise.
Well, chutzpah is what my people call it. But yeah, I did it because I was so taken with your documentary Lurkers, which I saw and have watched several times since, just trying to pick apart how it was made and the brain that made it. I've been so excited to talk to you about this book because I think it taps into exactly the same vein of like chaotic, imaginative, creative energy that I am craving so deeply, especially during this pandemic time. So I am just like ravenous and gluttonous to talk to you about this project. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have to say, well, when you accosted me 3 years ago, you were telling me, you said that I should turn your book, this fantastic book, into a movie. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
And then I tried to pursue it, but somebody beat me to it. So I just felt like,
yeah.
Anyway, it's a great book, and it's called We Eat Our Own, and it's by Kea Wilson, and you guys should read it because that's how we met, and that's why I kind of coerced you into doing this conversation with me, because I thought this is a chance to catch up.
Yeah,
as well for me.
You don't have to coerce hard because we definitely have a lot in common and are authors of lurky, creepy, exciting books that have been described as funny. I think yours is much funnier than mine, though, and I want to.
No, yours is funny too. I was just randomly opening a page today, and like this line is like one of the funniest lines of any book, I think, where you say and this is about women who are auditioning for a schlocky B movie, cannibal movie, and this line is just so simple. The women always brought their own wigs. And I thought that's like just a great line.
I have no memory of that, but
that is great writing. So anyway, okay, so we have a sense of humor. We have this, similar sense of humor, maybe.
Enough about my book. Let's talk about yours.
Okay.
So I need to know more than anything I've ever needed to know. What was the genesis of Lurkers? If there was a seed, if there was a moment. I read on a GQ.com interview that you've been writing this book on and off for 20 years. So tell me a little bit about when it started to like really take root as something that was going to be its own universe.
Yeah, it was maybe not 20 years, 15, maybe less. But it was definitely a few years after 9/11 when I moved into this kind of leafy neighborhood north of LA. It's suburbia. It's the place that nobody wants to write or think about, really, because it's so unexciting as a place. I was just I was like most people, anxious in the few years after 9/11, even though we're way across the country and it doesn't seem like we should have been very affected by it. But there was so much noise, and you could see people getting noisier on both sides, those of this political spectrum on TV, and you could see that kind of craziness starting. And I must admit that I was also slightly given to paranoid tendencies, where like if somebody was driving through my neighborhood in a strange vehicle at the wrong speed, either too fast or too slow, I would be like standing on my porch and just kind of staring at them strangely. I mean, because you just get so suspicious of everybody. And I thought, and I had just moved into this neighborhood, and I was just thinking, how I can make myself feel comfortable there would be to kind of imagine my way into the lives of the people around me, which, people weren't at that point. I mean, I don't think I was very friendly, but most people aren't naturally that friendly either. And there's all these people coming and going. And I just wanted to kind of get a sense of them. It's a strange thing also, because moving to that neighborhood of kind of a lot of craftsman houses, nice housing stock, I have to say, in that part of LA, or LA County. I had seen a lot of these houses, I thought, before. I'd seen them. They seem really awfully familiar to me because I've grown up watching American TV shows in the 80s and, as a kid, and or movies, and you see a lot of these houses, these very streets in movies, because they shoot a lot of movies in that part of town. And you see, like, the house that I lived in for a long time looks almost exactly like Buffy the Vampire Slayer's house. I mean, and then the Halloween house is like down the street, and it's just, these are all very familiar places. And one of the ways I thought you could just tell the story of a neighborhood like this would be to tell it through different people who kind of like are inhabiting different storylines, different genres almost, and then watch how they clash or not clash, or how they collide and merge and become new things. And that was how I sort of came about that. That's on the macro level of how I wanted to kind of tackle this thing. But on the more micro level, specific characters wise, there were specific I guess inspirations for a few of them. Like there's one character that she mentioned, which is this aging gay horror writer named Raymond, and he lives in the nicest house in the street. And he's getting older, but he's feeling more irrelevant. And so that character was, I don't know a person who it has that biography exactly, but the broad strokes of his physical life, meaning his decor and the fact that he's so obsessed with the perfection of his surroundings, came to me via me having been in a famous author's house and seeing his immaculately appointed living room, all done in this kind of super film noir, expensive style, and so many wonderful mahogany bookcases, and every book in that bookcase was his own book. So it's that kind of thing. I mean, those details were just kind of funny and sad and human to me, and I just wanted to capture that kind of stuff. And so he was, there was a bit of that, but then there were other characters that came in different ways as well.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to me to hear you describe this book as like being born out of a period of being like a new transplant in a city, in a period of deep paranoia and isolation. Because my experience of visiting LA, which I've only been to like 4 or 5 times, is like something really interesting and weird is happening behind a closed door in like a house in the mountains, and nothing is happening anywhere else.
Well, that's the thing. You can live there for 20 years. I've lived here for 20 years, and most people still think I live in New York. But you always feel that the action is somewhere else, because it's so sprawling. It's so hard to know. The word I like to use to describe it is that it's so slippery. It's just really hard to define. Like you've seen all these TV shows, they're always set in one specific area, like The Prince of Bel-Air, or, Beverly Hills 90210, or, someplace now more commonly you see them, all these comedies set in the hipster enclaves, Silver Lake or Echo Park or something. And you rarely see something that tries to get more places in there. And that's because it's so difficult. I mean, one of the reasons why I think strange new religions often take root here so well is because, this common ground. I mean, people are just seeking ways to connect with other people, and those are the places where they try to, that's how you can get people to connect, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about Karen Kusama, a St. Louis filmmaker, The Invitation, which is a very LA movie about a new religion. So thank you for reading my mind. But I wanted to ask you about LA because I think, as Shane opened up at the top, like LA is a character in this book in a certain way, but a very specific slice of LA and a very specific human place in LA. And by way of introducing you a little bit more too, you've lived in Singapore, in the UK, in New York. Why did you feel compelled to write about Los Angeles specifically compared to all these other landscapes that you've been a part of?
It was because I was there, and I was trying to welcome myself into this new place, this new neighborhood, actually, precisely. my first novel, The Black Isle, was kind of my farewell book to an island that I grew up on, and it's you know, so it's I think writing books is a way of kind of settling yourself in and other spaces, maybe, I don't know, or at least to me. So I wrote that book partially to just force me to just look beyond the surface of places. I mean, the places around me, you know, because it's not apparent. Its charms are not apparent, shall we say? Like it's so much of it is strip mall, you know, architecture. It's you know, I don't know, the check cashing place, or you know, taco joints and all that. And it's the charms of LA. I think it's a really hard place to kind of love if you're visiting. It's a great place to live. I think it's a hard place to visit, to me. And even if you live here, it's still really kind of like you have to crack the code somehow, and everybody cracks the code in their own different way, I guess.
Yeah, you can hear all the Midwesterners watching this just like getting nervous thinking about it.
And it's full of Midwesterners. That's the other thing. And yeah, so I mean, one of the way, I mean, one of my ways into this neighborhood is that it's filled with people from elsewhere, and everyone's just always kind of searching for this sense of home, I guess. I mean, that's a very American way of being, I guess. And you come to LA and you still have that, you know, you're trying to, you know, feel at home there, and you carry all this baggage with you. And it was also an excuse for me to write about these places where these people came from as well, because I wanted to, I don't know, it's just fun to write about different places.
Yeah. Well, you write about different places, and you also have an enormous number of characters in here. This thing is like a Dickens novel in a lot of ways, and that it's like, well, not in all the ways.
Yeah, no, it's yeah,
it's a cornier book than anything Dickens ever did.
We're
gonna just talk about that.
Not as ambitious, but yeah.
So there's the characters in this book just blew my mind, and I know folks haven't read it yet, but like I cannot wait for you to meet Raymond. I cannot wait for you to meet Eric, you know, even though he's kind of a mess. He's a very perverse, like John Waters level of horny teenage boy who is kind of an incredible plot cipher. You've got two sisters in here, Rosemary and Mira, who I'm really curious where they came from. How did you manage such a large cast of characters throughout this book, and just the sheer creativity of creating this many like living, breathing souls? Did that like grow out of control like a weed for you as you grow?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, I think each one of them contains an aspect of me, maybe. But also, I just wanted to. It was just fun, you know. Like it's fun to write about all these different kinds of people, because you can take a certain kind of person somewhere and make them think certain kinds of thoughts that you can't make. Like, you know, you can make a 40-year-old not very nice man think certain things that you cannot have a 14-year-old girl think necessarily. And then what if you make these two collide, and then, you know, see where this conversation or where this thing leads them, and they lead you. You know, it's like how you do it with your fantastic book. And it's just all, I don't know. It's such a profound question, because I never let me think that. I never kind of let myself think that, and now I'm kind of stumped.
Oh, well, we'll circle back on it a little bit. Yeah, I really wanted to ask about the characters in large part because there's a few of them in particular that I'm like, I've never seen a character written like this in this book. Like,
well, okay, so can I just say that is the other impetus for me, is that I want to read about and want to hear from, and, you know, imagine in motion characters that I haven't actually seen before in fiction or on TV or movies. Yeah. And I just wanted to satisfy that for myself. So like in writing, you know, the Korean American sisters, Mira and Rosemary, I just wanted them to be a little bit more, I know, questioning and spunky but not in the usual, you know, kind of adorable Disney ways, but a bit more closer to how I feel and how I might question the world and feel about things, or, you know, be curious or be adventurous or rebellious. And I just wanted to see those kinds of characters kind of be alive and be given life in a fictional work. So if nobody was going to do it to my satisfaction, I would have to do it myself. I mean, so much of that is I feel like that's like an impetus for making art, isn't it? I mean, asking you as an author, because like to satisfy something you want to read or see yourself.
Yeah. I do identify with that, but I think the way that you've done it is so beautiful. I don't want to own the spotlight here because I think that, I mean, it's not just the characters that feel like close to your spirit, or that, like, you know, you talked in another fantastic conversation with Kevin Kwan that I listened to you do the other day at Harvard Bookstore, another great independent. If anyone has a chance to go to Boston, you should check it out. About how you wanted to like represent the Asian American experience, or the Asian plus American experience. Not as a monolith. So there are characters who are Korean American, there are characters who are Vietnamese American, you have the adoptive experience and all of those things. Tell me a little bit about how you populated that side of the world and made sure that you were engaging all these different aspects of your own lived experience within the book.
Yeah, I just like was craving to see, or you know, those kinds of people in a fictional work that weren't making them either saints or victims. I'm so tired of that. And I just wanted to represent them as real people going through interesting situations and reacting to them in interesting ways, as any fully embodied character might. And so that was, and I hope that I kind of do that as well for everybody else, you know, who is doesn't happen to be Asian, or is some, you know, comes from a different place, and hopefully they're as fully formed as well. But my whole thing was really, I guess, one of the main structural conceits of this book is it's all about these little pods, these little family pods, and how people might be bedeviled by their parents, their blood parents, or you know, real parents or something, and this act of growing up. You know, I have these characters who are maybe in their 60s and they feel like they haven't fully grown up because of something that happened in the past, or something they're hanging on to, you know, too long. And I just want to, you know, really kind of tell the family story in a new way, where blood isn't the, you know, end all for everything. It's actually, blood is no more than you know, no more profound than spilled soda in some circumstances, where you know, like, you know, the choices you make, the chosen families are stronger than a lot of the families that are clumped together and they're, you know, they feel kind of tragically lumped together. And so yeah, so that I, you know, starting with that, and then I go into that's how I then, you know, start to go into characters and how these people might react to their parents, or you know, people around them, siblings. And my editor of this book very wisely noted, like way too long after I've actually finished writing the book and I didn't see it, but he said this book is about the collision between people with a sense of irony and people without a sense of irony, and that's where a lot of the conflict and the comedy happens. And so that is often the case with different generations of people, especially say, and you know, kind of a young American-born Asian person who might have a sense of irony and a sense of humor that may be quite different from their parents, and then how that kind of comes into collision and all the comedy and tragedy that might engender.
Yeah, I want to talk about comedy a little bit more, and this might be a little bit of a swing because I feel like we're painting your book a little bit too much to feel like it's like just an authentic coming of age story, because it's that. Right. Also,
no, and it's not a social drama. We've made it sound like it's some kind of, you know, social drama, and I just want to, I want to say it's not.
I was gonna say, and also there is like a scene where you were invited to laugh at a plane crash full of Vietnamese orphans. Like there are all these like really intense moments of dark comedy. And I just wanted to read like one little quip from a review. I hope that's not too annoying.
Yeah,
Where
sure.
part of the pleasure of reading Lurkers is the queasiness of parsing the darkly comic from the just plain dark. And you told this particular reviewer that Tan told me she enjoys unscaring herself by addressing her worst nightmares on the page. And I wanted to ask a little bit about the super dark humor in this book. There is a lot of themes of predation and like creepy men, some of whom are much more dangerous than others, I would say. How did you manage the tone throughout this book to walk that line between the darkly comic and the just plain dark and kind of keep the readers guessing?
That's a great question. It's my gut. I guess my gut would be the place that I would begin, and then we just write. I write and edit a lot, and then your gut tells you where you are. It's like this. I don't know. It's like your compass or something. Maybe if not a moral compass, authenticity or I don't know, artistic compass or something that tells you, where what's too much and what's not enough. And I just, want to play often with, especially teenage girls who feel like, because that comes from my lived experience as well. Younger women who feel like you're very smart and very control your life, and you think you have a lot of agency, and you kind of do on some level you do. And then you come to contact with people who are, maybe should be a lot wiser and kinder and sometimes aren't. And what happens when that happens, I mean, I should say, like, if anyone feels, so this is not going to be too queasy making, because nobody really, none of the kids get hurt. Like, no animals are killed in this book. So just so, because I'm somebody who's become so, so wimpy when it comes to reading about these things myself, that they're almost like, you're playing out your nightmare scenarios and your kind of worst fears on the page when you're writing these things out, like unscaring myself. But I know what scares me too, and I just don't want to go there. So like, I do not want to depict something brutal, too brutal, or I cannot watch, for example, I cannot watch any movie that even has an animal that might get hurt. I mean, I just cannot do that anymore. I'm that person. So I know it's like to kind of to be close to witnessing something that may be horrifying on the page, but it's just I'm too chicken to actually go there,
Yeah, I think you do go there in several ways, and it's one of the things that I love about this book. But a lot of the things you're saying are sort of making me think back to your documentary, Shirkers, a little bit. Specifically when you're talking about the sort of complicated but very real agency of teenage girls, and how, for those who haven't watched Shirkers yet, like, I'm not going to say turn this off and go watch it, but like, after this is done, go watch it. It's on Netflix. You can see it right now. It's so beautiful. But it's about the making of film that you made when you were a teenager that then was, to put it frankly, stolen from you by an older male mentor before it was restored to you, and the journey of how it became Sugars, which is a documentary about the making of a movie. It's so beautiful and meta and good. But I'm curious how the process of writing this book compared to the process of making that film, and also the process of writing your first book. Like, tell me about how novel writing and filmmaking compare, and how they what they do to you energetically as you're working.
I guess I'm such a person that requires to, I start from some kind of great emotional lack, I guess. And I write myself into, I don't know, like writing myself, like correcting myself as or my state of mind, or what I'm lacking. So, working on Shirkers, the film, was kind of a detective, an active, I don't know, it was like becoming a detective, I guess, solving this case for myself, in order that I may put to rest this kind of uneasy thing that happened when I was a late teenager and ruined my friendships with my, teenage friends that I made this original film with, and that was stolen from me. And, there was a lot of finger pointing and blame and all that kind of stuff and shame. And so it was a process of kind of repairing everything. In making this film, I had to kind of repair everything. And by repairing it and by being a detective, you're actually unburying or, I don't know, reigniting old animosities, I guess. And then before you can put them out again. So it was, the process was as much a thing for me as the finished film. But the finished film, I guess, because it's so, it's such a record of the process, the psychological, emotional process of making this film, that I guess a lot of people, then feel, that it was resonant to them, even though they never made a film that was stolen. Everybody has that same feeling of time passing and, broken friendships and coming back together again and that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to make sure that in making that film, it wasn't going to be too, solipsistic and hard to follow for anyone who didn't have the exact same life experience or lived in the same places. So I just made sure that I always led with emotions. I always led with things that were kind of palpable to anyone. And I figured if you did that, then you can sort of tell this zigzaggy, very complicated story through time and space. Once you have grabbed hold of them in the first 5 minutes. So that's what I try to do. With all of them, I think I try to like grab hold of people who may not, be necessarily that interested in my story or, where the story is set. But if you can kind of grab hold of them and then trans them for the first 5 minutes, you can sort of take them anywhere. I find that to be the rule of thumb that has worked so far. Knock on wood. So with Lurkers, that too, I start, with these very porous vessels. I think these teenage girls that are easy to get to know and to root for, and then kind of take them and then take you back and forth in time through various characters in the neighborhood. And they're like the way they're like holding your hand and taking you in to the dark woods or something, and then I'll get you lost and do horrible things to you.
Yes, please. I love that. I want to talk a little bit more abstractly now. I have a pet question I like to ask all other writers, something that I'm interested in, which is if you had to compare the writing of Lurkers to another art medium, what would it be? I have an answer for what I think you're going to say, but and it does relate back to Shirkers, but I want to hear what you had to.
I would say it's for me when I was writing it, when I first started writing it in like 2005, 2006. I was watching a lot of, that was like when TV was really interesting. So I was watching a lot of like 6 Feet Under and, the shows like that, where it expanded what was possible in terms of character-driven storytelling, where you can have, a show with a lot of characters and you kind of get to know them over time and you follow different ones in different episodes. And people were okay with that. I think storytelling changed a little bit after that time. I think before those years, before those kinds of shows became very popular, people were more reluctant, I think, to kind of follow that in a book where you might be, hopscotching in a mainstream book anyway, hopscotching between characters, so freely. I think people are much more open to that kind of storytelling now, thank God. And so that was what I was. That's the closest, relative, I think, you were asking.
Yeah, I could see that, but I also think there was like, both in Shirkers and in Lurkers, there are references to zines. Like there's it's to both of them, and like so in Shirkers, there's like all these fantastic like transitions where like you're taping a bunch of like flies to the lens or something like that, and there's like various like moments in the book where it feels like there's an element of collage and like DIY kind of energy to it. How did that work in? I'm curious if that was something that was intentional.
Yeah. So in Shirkers, when I was making the film, I was trying to recapture the energy I, had making brought into the making of the original film when I was a teenager, and I was very much a collage person, a maker of zines with my friends. And so I just wanted to have the film and, have a bit of that kind of energy. And it was both an artistic choice, but a choice that was necessary as well, because I had so little material. I had, the villain in Shirkers, George, who stole the film. I had a total of 30 seconds of footage of him in total. Like this includes slowing down, like, him, like that was caught, frames of him caught in video in the background of some shot. And he was so elusive, and so like he was my Moriarty. I mean, he just never was so hard to pin down ever. And even looking for footage of him, any information of him was difficult. So we had 30 seconds of him, and we had to make that last and make him feel like a presence and a villain throughout the entire movie. And having done that, I think, I had to find a lot of solutions, how you do that. And that also entails things like, sound design, and you associate the George, the character, with, a certain sound or a certain kind of image. And then you kind of play that as a motif, and that kind of carries you through for more of the film. And it's maybe also kind of a literary tactic, that you can do, and in carrying these characters through with echoes. Like, so there'll be a lot of characters that might echo each other through the book. So even while the original, the source of the echo may not be present in some of the other scenes, but you feel that they are, just because the echo is there. You know what I mean? I guess it's a strange thing to say, but it's that's how
Yeah, I like that comparison to the presence of an echo. Well, we're kind of winding down our time here. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. So I wanted to remind the audience to type up your Q&A, if you will, because we'll have some time to hear from you. But I do want to hear from you, Sandi, a little bit about your upcoming projects. It sounds like, well, first I want to ask, will Lurkers ever become HBO style TV show that follows these characters? Because I could stay in this universe forever. And I also want to talk about your adaptation of The Idiot by Elif Batuman, which is a fabulous book that I'm sure a lot of our folks who are watching this have read, that you are in talks to direct something for it. Tell me what's kind of on your plate for your next project.
So it's funny how, if you're in the business in LA, it's all like, you're not supposed to talk about anything until it's done. But I am talking to some very, very good people about turning Lurkers into a TV show. So that's in progress. Developing this thing. That's all I can say at the moment. And for on The Idiot, actually that's been announced for a while. I've actually I'm collaborating, with Elif Batuman, who's just finished writing the sequel to The Idiot, and I've finished writing my adaptation, and we're currently in several interesting conversations, as it's called, in trying to bring this thing to the screen. And of course, last year was a difficult year because of COVID, and because nothing could be done. But now things are coming back alive again, and so we're just really starting those conversations seriously now. And it'll be exciting. I just can't wait to do this. So it's and in fact, Elif and I are, for those who are watching live and not watching this archived 2 years from now, we're going to be doing a conversation on Thursday with Film Independent in LA, and that's going to be a kind of a live stream thing about my adapting her novel, and also about how we both adapt life into fiction, and and about her sequel as well. So that's exciting. But yeah, so all those things are, whatever. I mean, it's just, you just have to wait. It's all about waiting, right? and timing. But it's very exciting. I mean, I'm just very happy that there are really smart, interesting people to collaborate with. I mean, I find that the most gratifying thing is because, as you know, like, writing is the loneliest thing in the world.
So lonely, right?
But it's the most fulfilling and the most most in control thing in the world, because you have to write every single word, and that means you have control of the entire domain, which is it's both fun and extremely lonesome. So it's
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to just working with other people, as I already am.
I think you're in control of your entire domain. I don't think everyone's in control of their domain. I certainly don't feel in control of my domain a lot. That's one of the things.
Come on.
Oh my God.
This
way.
book.
No, there's so much chaos in it for me. It's like,
but chaos is part of it, right? I mean, the fact that you can harness the chaos makes it so alive, and so I mean that is control. You know what I mean? It's like
maybe.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I kept thinking about, there's one image in your book, we don't have a lot of time left to talk about it. I'm so sad that these are so short, but you, at the end of the book, you have characters playing the game Katamari Damacy, which is like the one video game about which I feel completely passionate love. Like,
I'm here because it's for people who don't play computer games.
Oh my God, it's so good. So if you are a person who doesn't play video games or computer games, it's this, you are like a sentient ball that is rolling through a like 8-bit graphic like landscapes, like picking up things on your sticky skin, and then all of a sudden like you are the universe. I am being accurate when I describe this.
It is, and it's Japan. So it's like you start off in Tokyo with all these, like, you're picking up sushi with this ball of like, crazy gum or something, and you're picking up sushi and you're picking up things and you're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then soon you're like rolling over people and like cars in Tokyo, and then it's monorails and then boats and ships, and then slowly, you get so big that it's anyway. Go on.
Like the moon is in you. It's so good, and it's such a it's like, I feel like I'm writing experimental poetry when I try to describe this game. But I thought it was also like a pretty, video games are in this book a lot. The book opens with like a guy playing Vice City, which is a very beautiful portion. And I was curious if you have been playing a lot of video games during quarantine, or how else you are spending your time.
Not at all. I the last 2 games I played were probably those 2 games that open and close the book, and that was back in the mid-aughts. Because that's my level of playing, because I'm so afraid of like I've lost years, I've lost weeks, maybe days to internet Scrabble. I mean, that is just the most dangerous thing in the world, like internet Scrabble, like Words with Friends or something. It's just, you cannot get those hours, you cannot get those days and weeks back. Like, just put it away. So that's why I don't, I waste enough time as it is on the phone.
It is hard for me to imagine you wasting time, because your creative output is wild and amazing. And I cannot wait to hear what our audience has to ask you, because you are a bottomless well of cool ideas. So what questions do we have for Sandi?
Okay. So the first question literally stole my question. So you have such, like, I'll say Dr. Coathanger's question. You so palpably bring the audience into your created world in Lurkers. Does Lurkers exist in a similar world, or are you after something else entirely?
Ooh, wow, that's really difficult. What world that you mean like what do you mean? Like,
well, my question was, and I think that they're asking a similar question. You're so, like, it feels like the audience is so brought into your work, both Lurkers and in Lurkers.
I think it's because with Lurkers, I knew that I was bringing them into a place that for most people would be very foreign, whether it's because they don't know what Singapore is, or what the early 90s felt like, because it's a long time ago, and a lot of my biggest fans weren't even born yet. And it's so you had to really hold their hand and just grab them and just make them understand who you are emotionally, and not even explain. Like, for the longest time, I tried all these sequences of explaining where we were in the world and what the world around us looked like. And that did not matter, because once you establish yourself as a human being going through these things, I think, and you can have people along the journey, like you can take them along on this journey with you. I just felt like it was really important to kind of pull them into your world by whatever means possible. And in the case of Shirkers, it was arresting colors, images, music, and sounds that kind of brought them on along with you on a very unconscious, subconscious level. All these sounds that just felt like you were half asleep, and almost kind of doing a kind of an act of hypnotism almost, and kind of bringing them along with you. And in Lurkers, it was a different thing because it's a different medium, but you had to find a way of coming, bringing people along with you. And therefore, as I said with Kea, it was through these girls that felt like porous enough vessels for people to feel like they can know and feel like they want to know and want to travel along and feel some concern for. So that was how I brought them into the world, because again, in Lurkers as in Shirkers, I was going to take them places back and forth in time, and it's very, very crucial that I could hold their hand quite tightly before I let them loose in the woods.
Thank you. Yeah. I forgot to thank you for the incredible conversation.
Thank you guys for actually inviting me to this, to do this.
There was a point, and I forget what you were talking about, but I typed in the comments like that it was such a beautiful description. Oh, when you were talking about what your editor said, I just like.
Oh, right.
Like it really made me think about.
That's all credit to Mark Doughton, who's an author himself. Of ambitious experimental books, but that thing about the collision between people with a sense of irony and people without a sense of irony.
Yes, yeah, that was exactly what I said. Was a beautiful description. I love that, and I feel like it very much sealed in like what I was feeling while reading the book. So
yeah, because that's my experience of life in general. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like that's where a lot of humor it comes out of, and also tragic misunderstandings. but usually, because I'm somebody who tries to make everything slightly funny just to stay sane. That's my view of the world. Slight detachment, but and then versus people who don't have that maybe that level of self-protection, and that's when you have a lot of the source of everything bad and good in this world, I guess. Yeah. Interaction.
Getting back to other like audiences, I feel like you have such a grasp of like who your audience is and like who how you want them to react in like so many ways. Like I feel like I feel like I'm reacting in exactly the way that I think you think I would react in the ways as I'm reading it. Like I feel like that's the level of craft. No.
First you got to trick people into reading the book, right? If people are unlucky enough to be tricked into reading the book, then hopefully I can pull them along. But that's the thing, isn't it? The challenge of trying to secure somebody's attention for 5 seconds in this world that's filled with infinite number of more attractive options, yelling at them, and it's just, I don't know, I just whoever I can, I feel like I owe that to my viewer or my reader or people, because nobody owes you a second. And so when they give you their time, I think it's really your responsibility to kind of take them along and entertain them, but also show them something new. And just share with them your excitement for life, or my excitement for like what you can do with the form. I'm not. That sounds really pretentious. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant like I just want to share with them like the excitement of being alive. You know what I mean? And if they are generous enough to spend time with you, then I think you should entertain them or make them feel the excitement for things, everything.
Yeah. I want to know what type of media you're both consuming right now, because we talked a little bit about this, or Kea talked a little bit about this earlier. And a lot of readers are like gravitating towards like rom-coms and things like that to kind of get through this difficult time. And I myself very much am like gravitating. I always kind of gravitate in that direction anyway. But also, I'm like devouring true crime and like super gritty things that I've never really been one to read a lot of dystopian fiction, and I am now. Yeah, shocking. Yeah, bet you never thought I'd say that phrase.
Nope. Gotta be honest. It's exclusively like high literature Nigerian authors in my mind. Like that's about a type. So anyway.
Yeah, I have been strangely enough, I have been so resistant to listening to audiobooks for the longest time and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But somehow, because I'm sharing small space with somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, and I'm talking to him, and he's not, he's often listening to something, and so I realized, okay, maybe I should listen to something too, and then we can have all dueling listening things and not talk to each other. And so I began listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I just finished listening to 17 hours of Philip Roth's Sabbath Theater on audiobook. I really, really encourage everybody to do that because it's an amazing read by this guy called David Dukes, and he does all the voices with such gusto. And and this is a book that's a long book that's mostly about sex and death. Actually, it's entirely about sex and death, but described with such gusto and such comic ferocity. And this guy, doing all the voices, and often in very lewd situations, and completely obscene situations, but doing all the voices with great gusto. And I strongly encourage you to listen to that if you're at all curious about later Philip Roth. And then follow that up by listening to a Convenience Store Woman, the Japanese novel that's a really slim novel that's kind of on the complete opposite end of like a spectrum of as Philip Roth. It's like this completely slightly low-key psychopathic asexual Japanese woman working in a convenience store who feels that is her life and gives her kind of life meaning. And I'm listening to that on audiobook as well, and it's just and it's great. It's just so fantastic to have stories read to you. I didn't think I would ever be that kind of person because I like to look at things on the page. I like to know, because structurally, I like to know where, when this thing happens. I'm so nerdy. I mean, I'm sure you are too, Kea. Like knowing where this thing happens in relation to the entirety of the novel. Just structurally, because I'm always curious about that. But in the case of these two stories, I just was so happy to just have it just read to me like I'm a kid.
Yeah, I'm a huge audiobook person. And also my husband and I both invested in like noise canceling headphones during the pandemic, so we could just like be in separate like hermetic bubbles during this time.
Yeah, so we're all doing that.
Yeah. But I love audiobooks because I have an 80-pound dog who needs to be walked for like 1,000 hours a day or he explodes. So I do a lot of audiobooks as well. But I've been reading like on paper books. I'm reading Javier Maria's The Infatuations, which I've never read before.
Yeah, I want to. I want to read that one.
It's so good. And I remember in another event, Sandi, you mentioned that you're also a big Bolaño fan, and he was Roberto Bolaño's favorite writer.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic. But which
one is The Infatuations? Can I ask you? Is that the one that's it's not the Anatomy of a Moment type thing, right? That's what is The Infatuations about?
It's about a woman who has been kind of spying on a couple at a cafe, and then one of them is murdered.
Okay.
Play the wind up for it. It's so it's got like lots of like lurky sort of like creeping on strangers and insinuating yourself into their lives kind of.
Oh, cool.
But like with a very like stripped down prose that goes in some twisty directions, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's super good. I meant to ask you during our talk if you listen to or read works from other writers as you're reading. I like to like overdose on other writers.
Yeah. As you're writing, when you're writing. Oh, really?
Sorry.
I'm quite the reverse. I like to do that when I'm editing, because then I'm like farther along. But when I'm writing, I feel like I don't want to like inadvertently lift something or be influenced by something, or you know what I mean. And it's just, I don't know, paranoia on my part.
I maybe that's the thing to do, because I am taking a really long time to finish my second book, probably because I'm letting too many people in the room. But besides books, like I'm watching a lot of like trash TV. Like I watched like a show about competitive dog grooming that I really love.
Wow.
Called Hot Dog. But Hot is spelled H-A-U-T.
Oh my goodness.
It was fabulous. Exactly what I needed. Or like I watch things that are either so light that like I could just fold laundry and not even look at the screen and I would get the idea.
Wow.
Like so heavy it overwhelms me. Like I'm watching like the QAnon documentary right now, which is actually like a fascinating artifact on itself, even though it's like deeply upsetting. Think about the world. So yeah, I'm all over the map, but my husband is staying up late and watching rom-coms at 3 a.m, Shane. So he's
my God. like movies or series?
Both, I would say. Like when he started getting into like the Disney Channel, like made for TV movie stuff, I was like, we need to stop. Like you need to go to bed at 11 o'clock. Like,
oh my goodness.
Tell him to call me.
To trade recommendations because he's seen them all now. Yeah.
Sandi, it was Sabbath Theater that you mentioned about.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm providing
and it's the audiobook. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I was like laughing out loud so much.
If you do not know about Libro.fm, it is the indie source for audiobooks, and they are phenomenal. It is a direct competitor to that terrible Goliath that is just a great supporter of indie bookstores. It has recommendations from booksellers like me, and so I love Libro.fm, and they have Sabbath Theater available for sale there. So,
is there a Lurkers audiobook?
Yes, there is.
Sorry,
no, I did not. It was. I just cannot do that. But somebody else read it, and it's not bad. I'm told.
Good. I haven't listened to my audiobook either.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty. It's really horrifying.
I love that.
I tried to get Kea to let me do her audiobook, and she wouldn't.
I can only pull so many strings, Shane. Sorry.
You didn't pull even one for me.
I can, but the number of strings I can pull is 0 because I had no say in who read it. But the guy who read it was very nice. He was most famous for reading like Scottish kilt romance novels before.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was perfect.
He had a lovely brogue.
Yeah. He didn't have a brogue, but he had the timbre of like a community theater actor, which was pretty perfect.
Oh yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm going to my library's app and gonna listen to it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much. This is my second time getting to spend an hour with you, Sandi, and I cannot wait to spend more time with you.
For you.
No.
Thank you for this. This is so fun, and this is my my excuse for to kind of say hi to Kea after 3 years. So it's a very apt reunion.
Email me whenever, we can text. Let's be pals.
Yeah. This is so fun.
Cool. Thank you so much, Shane. And thank you all for coming. Please support Left Bank Books. I'm a former Left Bank bookseller alum, so I always want to shout it out. I'm so happy that you guys have held on and are now stronger than ever post-pandemic. I cannot wait to celebrate you on Independent Bookstore Day. So thank you so much for having us. And I can't wait for everyone to read Lurkers so I can talk about it. It's one of those books that you, like Los Angeles, once you're invited in, you just are like a member of a little cult and you can't stop talking about it. So I can't wait to recommend it to everyone I know.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Shane and Left Bank. Thanks for all of this. Bye.
Yay. All right. Have a good night, everyone, and we will see you again really soon.
Bye.
Bye.